Our first challenge is going to be the ASL package. We're going to import this and bring it into our Unity scene. From there, we have a main scene that we can just double click and open up. And so in this program, you're going to be creating a program that allows you to enter your age, your sex, and location into the inspector. When you press the space key, it should print out the values. You should be able to change these values at runtime. And then it gives us an example print. When it comes to creating games and applications and thinking like a software engineer, it's the fundamental ability to identify the right problems and break them down to their smallest form. And I understand, you need to understand that the computer does not know anything. The concept of age, sex, location, in a video game, the concept of speed, your score, your ammo count, these things don't exist. You as a programmer are defining those things. And so if we were to create a program like this, many developers, they'll look at this as a whole and say, okay, they get flustered because they don't know how to do the space key, they don't know how to print the values, they don't know how to enter in the age, sex, and location, and you start looking at the problem as a whole. What we need to get in the habit of doing is solving the problem step by step, one task at a time. For example, let's say that it was just a program that allowed you to enter your age into the inspector. We want to solve that one problem first. So to get started with this, we need to first create our C# script that's going to go onto our main camera for us to enter in the inspector all of the data. So let's create a new script, and we're going to create a monobehavior script called ASL. Once that script is created and compiled, we can select the main camera and we're going to drag it on there. And let's open that up. Now we have our class and we're ready to start building this application. I'll see you in the next video where we'll do our first challenge. So in this challenge, you're going to be creating and defining the concept of age. And so as a programmer, you have to define what age is, and then we need to be able to modify it in the inspector. That's your challenge. I'll see you in the challenge review. In this challenge review, we're going to take a look at how to define the age and modify it in the inspector. So we know that the program doesn't know what age is, so we as programmers have to define it, and that's where variables come into play. So I'm going to create a variable called private int, and we're going to call it age. From there, if I save this and go back into Unity, I'm not going to be able to modify this in the inspector because it's not a public variable. Best practices suggest that I should always be using private. I don't want to make it public because other scripts and rogue agents would be able to modify the value of age, and we don't necessarily want that. So we're going to use an attribute called serialized field. By applying this attribute above our code, this is going to allow Unity to modify that variable in the inspector. So a designer can actually come through here and modify the age value. So for example, I can put now 31. I'll see you in the next video. Now that we have our age defined, what do we need to do next? Here, we create a program that allows you to enter your age. We don't even care about sex, location. We want to focus on what the next immediate problem is. The next immediate problem to solve here is when you press the space key, it should print out the value. Okay, fantastic. So how do we now hit the space key? If we go back into our code here, anytime we're dealing with user input or dynamic events or interactions from the end user, we're always going to be looking to use our update method. And so here, if we write out some pseudocode, we're essentially checking for if space key is pressed, and then what do we need to do? We're going to simply print age. So now we know what the next immediate task to solve is, which is how do we now detect the space key? And this comes down to how user input inside of Unity and C# work. If we do a simple search for input Unity C# into Google, we'll come across the scripting API for the input system. And this is the legacy system. There is a new action map system that's extremely good and great for production games, but when you're quickly prototyping, we just want to use the input class. And if we were to read through this, the input class is going to allow us to do things such as if input, and this is a predefined button press, and using this, we can actually create any key code that we want essentially. So we can check, hey, if input, and there's something else called keys. And if we look at all the properties of the input class here, we can see here that there are things called get button down, get button up. These are defined within the input system. This is great for when you're doing things with like gamepad controllers. What we're interested in is this. I want get key down, and get key up. Get key is while the user holds down the key. Get key down is during the frame the user started pressing the down key, and get key up is when you release the key. So if we go into get key down, we can then see that, okay, cool. If input.getKeyDown, and then they specify a key code, and they hard coded in space here, but I'm going to show you a better way to do this. And if we look here, they actually already have it. If input.getKeyDown, keycode.space. You could also have done keycode.w or keycode.r, whatever key you want. This is a quick and dirty way to get user input inside of Unity. So if space key essentially just looks like this. We have an if statement. We access the input class. We're going to use our tooltip here to help us with get key down. And then if we open a parenthesis, we can see here that there's a tooltip that says keycode key. And so we're going to say keycode dot, and then I can look for the key I want. Do I want the W key, the R key, or if I want the space key? So now we can detect successfully, am I pressing the space key? And then what do we want to do? We simply want to print the age. So we're going to say debug.log, and we'll go ahead here and we're going to say age, and then we're going to append our variable, just like this. So now if we go back into Unity and save this and run the application, we can see here that when I hit the space key, we have age 31 get printed out in the bottom left. In our console here, it says age 31. Okay, so that is working. So now that we have the base application ready, how do we now add the sex location? And then we want the example print to be 25M Atlanta. So as a challenge, what do we need to do? We need to define the string for or location and sex. So we need to define sex and location. And then we need to modify the string here to print out all the data. I'll see you in the challenge review. In this challenge review, we're going to wrap up the ASL program. So we know that we need to define the sex and location. So we can do that by simply saying private string, and we can say underscore sex, and we could do private string location. Now, because these two variables are of the same type, we actually can just put a comma here, and I could say location. And then I'm going to use a serialized field attribute so that I can see both of these options in the inspector and modify them. From there, we want to print out the data so that it looks like the format we saw. So here we're going to say debug.log, and we're going to go ahead and put age. We'll say age. Let's just save this real quickly. Let's go back to what this is actually looking for. Okay, so example print basically just wants 25M and the location, so 25M Atlanta. So we don't even need this text here. However, we are going to add this text because I want to show you an option that you can do. Debug.log age plus equals the age. So age, and then we're going to add another appendance. We're going to say, hey, age plus a space. We're going to do location, or sex, I mean. And then we'll add another appendage here. And this one's going to be location. If we save this and print it out, we'll see here that it's going to say sex. We'll go ahead and put in the actual keys here. And then right here is going to be location. Okay. So this is how you used to have to create kind of long form strings where you're using the plus icon to append everything together. And if I hit the space key, you'll see here it says age 31 sex location is blank because I never filled it in. So on the main camera here, we want to change that to M, and we'll put Hawaii. And if we run this now and I hit the space key, you can see here age 31 sex M location. Now it says here that we should be able to run this at runtime. So if we actually were to change this to like 37 and female, you'll see here that, there you go, it changes in runtime. because the game is running, it's an update, it's running 60 frames per second, it's waiting for me to hit the space key, and we successfully solved this problem. Now, the last thing I want to show you, though, is how we can better write this line of code. And I'll save that for the next video. In this video, I want to talk about how we can potentially write better strings that don't look so messy like this. And this is a new C# feature where I could essentially say debug.log, and before the string, I'm going to place a $ symbol. And this is going to allow me to actually craft a message that says, for example, I could say my age is blank, and instead of having to do like an appendage, I can actually just do my age is, and I can open up some squirrely braces and put a variable in here. And so I can actually write out a whole sentence that says my age is 31 and my sex is, then we can add sex, and my location is, and then we add location. And so this is just a cleaner way to write complex strings. And you can see here it's much more easier to read and modify this than managing all these plus symbols. Both of these would do the exact same thing. If we save this and run Unity, you'll see. Let's run this. Hit the space key, and there we go. My age is 31 and my sex is M and my location is Hawaii. So just a cool tip on strings for you. I'll see you in the next one.